So you wanna be a picture book writer, then you gotta write picture books. And you're gonna need a bucket load of bright ideas for titles, plots, and hooks. If you're partial to prose or you're raring to rhyme, then repeat after me. It's a challenge, but I'm gonna tackle each story 1 month at a time with 12 by 12.
So I'm going to talk about primary layers, the top 10, if you will. This does not mean they are the only layers in picture books, but these are the ones that you have to have in some form in order to have a successful picture book. So the first one is structure. And I'm going to go through each one of these, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this list. The second is character, plot, theme, voice, heart, illustration, pacing, language, and the rule of 3. So I picked these are all new picture books from 5 years ago. Obviously, I wanted to update it. But the exciting thing is that every book in this presentation was either written or illustrated or both by a 12 by 12 member. Every single book that I share here is a 12 by 12 book. So for structure, we actually have quite a few that we can work with, and I added more from when I gave this presentation 5 years ago. So there's your standard narrative arc, beginning, middle, end, problem to solve, 3-ish attempts to solve the problem, climax, resolution, inciting instance, climax, resolution. And that's pretty much your standard narrative arc picture book. Then we have circular. And for this, 2 Dogs on a Trike by Gabby Snyder. It starts off with 1 dog and then 2 dogs on a trike. And we have this cat stalking them. And then it goes backwards. And then at the end, there's 1 dog again, but this time there are 2 cats on a trike and a mouse that's about to stalk them. So it just starts over where it began in a new way. Concept books are a structure. There's many different types of concept books, ABCs, number. There can be nonfiction concept books. I think a great example of this is Circle Under Berry by Carter Higgins. And obviously it has the spatial, but there's also shapes and there's creativity and color and whoa, it's got everything. Cumulative. Susanna Leonard Hill has a book that has the structure of the house that Jack built, only it's the road that trucks built. Epistolary. Books that are written all in letters. And a great example of this is Tabitha and Fritz Trade Places by Katie Frawley. These two actually do switch from the city and the jungle, and then they write back and forth to each other. And then there's the parallel structure. And a fabulous example is Martin and Anne by Nancy Chernin. Martin Luther King and Anne Frank never met, but they were fighting for similar things at the same time in the same time frame. And so Nancy does a masterful job of kind of creating that theme of freedom and justice and equality in these 2 lives. So those are 6 options, plus these are the ones I added. Instruction picture books, whether it's a manual or in the case of this one, Anna's A History of Underwear with Professor Chicken, where you have a character that's teaching. That can be a fun structure to play with. This is pretty cool. This book, Before We Stood Tall by Jessica, and even though she was in my promo group, I'm going to butcher the last name, Kulikan, and I know that's not right. I'm so sorry, Jessica. But this is so cool because it's almost a flashback, which is really hard to pull off in a picture book. But it's before we did this, and then let me take you back to the beginning, and or a backwards book where you're starting. It's not quite backwards, but that is, you could use either of these where, you're going from the big tree back down to the seed. In this case, it does that because it's flashing back to when it was a seed, but then basically goes in chronological order. A beautiful book. Reversal, I think the classic, most amazing example I've seen of this recently is I'm Off Far Away. And it's actually a reverso poem where the words go up in the middle and then they come back down exactly the same, but slightly different, obviously very different in terms of meaning, but also punctuation and breaks and things like that. Mystery. This is probably still pretty much narrative arc, but because there are certain elements to mystery as a genre, I think it's worth separating out as its own structure. And Caitlin Aronson's recent book, Who Done It, which might have the best title ever, is an example of that. And then we have Meet in the Middle. So I think this could be, you could call this a parallel story, but they're not going side by side. And this, again, is a pretty tough structure to pull off, but Carter Higgins does it beautifully in Bikes for Sale, where these two individuals each have a bike and they have their own things that they're doing, and then they crash and you have to see what happens after. And then their stories are tied together from then on. So that's structure.
Do it together so never you fear. It's a handy little way to help you kick into gear. You're amazing, exciting. Look out, 'cause you're writing 12 by 12.
12 manuscripts.
12 by 12.
12 picture books.